Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
First responder financial freedom. We're herding cats. Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, Thomas O'Brien, former cop, and Aaron Foster. We're having Tommy back on. We had him on a couple months ago when he first started his investing journey. So Tommy, Thomas, welcome back, buddy. I really appreciate you hopping on again. Your setup and your casting couch look phenomenal.
It's for fun.
So it's been a while since we talked on podcast. I know we talk on a pretty regular basis. You've been hitting subject to short-term rentals. You send out flyers, letters. What else you been going on?
Well, could you give people basically just a brief overview in case they haven't heard the first show? Because I know you're
go back and listen, people.
In the middle of it. Yeah, we'll try and tag it, but could you kind of just give everybody a brief background?
Yeah, sure. I clocked in about a little over 15 years with Philly PD. The last, I'd say, 7 as a sergeant. And I got swapped around to a few different districts. And long story short, a couple of years back, I guess it's probably going on about 3 years ago now, we had the riots in Philly. And I got bottles of piss thrown at me. And I came home and I told my wife, I was like, there's got to be a better way to live than this. So that's kind of why I started looking into real estate, and I found, the first responder group and a few other resources and stuff like that. And I just dove right in like head first. So fortunately, I've been able to leave the job. I was able to replace my income. Definitely not rich, but I can pretty much do whatever I want with my time at this point.
So you've left the police force after 15 years, right?
Yep.
And that was all within the last year, correct?
Yep.
So, yep. And just to clarify, you basically left the police force by jumping into real estate.
Correct.
Like that's basically how you're paying your bills, right?
That is exactly how I'm paying my bills. I have, net income after, expenses are put aside, between a combination of long-term rentals, short-term rentals, and a few wraps. And that my net income has definitely exceeded my police salary. And now I look back at it, I'm like, dude, like if I only knew about this stuff when I was younger, like, you know what I mean? Like, years of just like eating shit and
getting bottles of piss thrown at me.
Yeah, getting bottles of piss thrown at you. Like, it's like, man, it's nice. I get to wake up and, do whatever the hell I want. My wife gets really mad at me sometimes. I'm not going to lie.
So I'm sure we'll dive into the specifics, but like, can you speak to, because I mean, first off, congratulations. That's like, that's the dream that most people are searching for right there is.
It is. And like, I was just talking about it with my wife earlier. I'm like, dude, this is like, just this alone is amazing. Like all my needs are met. My wife will argue differently because she's still going to work. So she makes substantially more money than I do, but that's the next.
Sugar mama.
Sugar mom. That's the next goal, is to replace her income. So she's starting to get excited. I started throwing her in a little bit into the mix, and now she's getting excited. She does the short-term rental, and she just left. She insists on cleaning the place because she can't stand the idea of paying $150 to a cleaner. So
yeah. I have a strict rule in my house. My wife's not allowed to talk to the tenants because she can be a firecracker. So Tommy,
you started your first deal in what, Fishtown? That was the first one you had. That was like a holdover.
So I did have a triplex. I moved into a duplex. I turned it into a triplex. This is probably about 12 years ago. And I kind of got excited about seeing that concept. I was like, dude, I'm living for free. I can only imagine if I moved out of the third apartment after I got it rezoned and, buy another property. And it just, a whole lot of life circumstances led to me not being able to do that at the time. So, but I ended up selling that. We moved out to Media outside of Pennsylvania. Outside of Philly. And it's a beautiful, area. The school district is top notch. Life is already good. We held on to our Fishtown rental, and we were only making a couple $100 a month off of that. But that when I was like, all right, let's get the ball rolling here. So that's when everything kind of kicked off from there. So I did have the one rental kind of starting out.
Let's talk about some of the obstacles on that one, because I know the construction and the renovation was supposed to be a duplex and you got to turn it into a triplex, and you ran into some obstacles. What were those?
From that initial deal, dude, I had no idea what I was doing, and I bought the place, and I just thought because it had extra room in the basement and had already had an addition put onto it that I could just turn it into an apartment. And yeah, then I got a knock from L&I, and they're like, you can't do that. You have to go through zoning and, the local community advisory board and all this stuff. So I ended up going through that entire process, and they approved it. And I did end up getting it rezoned as a triplex.
Sweet.
So, but it was a headache, but it was just a perfect example of not knowing anything about what I was doing and kind of just figuring out along the way.
Isn't that what we all do though? Like we just figure out the answers, and we ask our friends questions and get answers. So move forward. Like you don't know what you don't know. So we have these conversations so people can kind of, what's next?
Oh my God. It's funny because I never knew that I always thought I was one of a very small minority that actually thought that way and did things that way, until I met a bunch of you guys that all do the same exact thing. So I'm still doing it today. I'm hacking my way through this crazy deal in Tampa right now that is like an extreme clusterfuck. And I just learned a shit ton about mobile homes and land divesting, and I had no idea what that word was until the other day.
So
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I'm not very good at geography, but you just talked about Philadelphia and then Tampa, which are pretty far apart. So just to be clear, you're now investing outside of your backyard, so to speak. You're investing.
Yeah, I told Aaron the other day, dude, I'm a garbage head. I will literally buy anything anywhere if the numbers make sense and I feel like I could come out on top. I'll dive right in.
But that's what Tyler does too. Is Tyler does long distance investing as well, and he's got it down to a science. It's just, Tyler, why don't you talk about like some of the things that you got in place? The people.
I think it's just a mental block, but yeah, I mean, it's just you take what you do locally and then you have to source it in a different area, and it's really no different. It's not like, is it nice to go shake your contractor's hand and meet them in person? Yeah, but like, can you do some of those things over the phone? Absolutely. It's just creating. I think you just need more checks and balances, because I think there are areas where that you can have problems, right? Like you could miss stuff in a virtual inspection versus actually physically walking the property. You could, a contractor could send you photos as you go through the project, and they're very specific photos, and you don't see what's behind those photos, which could be nothing, and you could spend a lot of money and lose money. But kind of like Tommy said, it's like you take each thing as it comes. You figure out a process for it, or I would say a process or a person, and then you fine tune that. So for me, I have an agent out there, I have a contractor out there, I have an inspection company I use the same people over and over because I trust them. And I'm sure once Tommy has this done in Tampa, he now has a roster of people that he has used on one deal, and you can go to the second one and then the third one. And then once you realize that you can do it in one market, you can do it in any market. You just take the same playbook and apply it to that different city.
Let me ask you guys a question, all three of you, because I want to get your answer. Do you share your contractors with other investors or people? Tyler,
I don't.
You don't? Why not?
No, because I just I'm selfish. I've spent a lot of time training him, and like the way I like to pay him and stuff like that. And I don't want other people grabbing him. And we all know once you find a good contractor, I mean, that's like the toughest part of the equation, in my opinion. And not that I guess I don't volunteer it. I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't tell you who I use, because that would be kind of lame. But I don't volunteer that info out there now.
Thomas, what about you?
Well, the first contractor that I used in Delaware, I won't recommend him to anybody anyway. Actually, both of them, because there was two. The one in the Poconos, I would recommend him only because I don't really have another deal going on up there, and he did me right, so I would refer him. And in Tampa, I'm just getting started down there. The Georgia one, I'm not even really touching that thing. I'm just wrapping it. So, yeah, I don't know.
How about your decking contractor in PA?
Oh, that dude.
So for those of you listening, Tommy, he sent me these text messages of pictures of his porch he's having rebuilt. And I just screenshot it and I started circling in red all the things that were wrong with it. I was like, fire him immediately.
And that's exactly what happened.
And then you rebuilt it yourself.
And then I rebuilt it myself.
Yep. What about you, Mike?
Why I got into creative finance.
Mike, do you share your contractors?
So I used to. And there's certain people that I'll recommend, like my HVAC contractor. I recommend him all the time. Certain trades like that. But the guy that was doing a lot of my flips, or people that were doing a lot of my flips, no, I don't recommend them anymore. So it's one of those, like, you give. And I know I've talked about it. I run a local meetup. So like geographically the area I work in, and was doing a lot of my flipping. And I'd be like, yeah, call this guy, do this guy, whatever. And I had somebody basically take my entire crew. And then it didn't work out very well. So I don't mind referring people for jobs, but whenever I had basically, I don't want to say, they weren't my crew. So just to be clear, but I was feeding them, multiple houses a month. And then this other guy kind of snaked his way in there and basically took him over, became his landlord. So now he controls where he lives, and then basically gave me absolutely nothing. Not that I was asking for anything, but basically, hey, take, no give. It wasn't like, oh, hey, by the way, here's this guy. You could probably call and use him for this job. It was just like, hey, could you let me know about this guy? Let me know. And I was like, yeah, man, call this guy, do this, do that. And so lesson learned.
Tyler calls them IGMs. I never heard that term until him and I were talking a couple months ago. What's the IGM stand for?
I got mine.
Yeah.
Those are those guys. Like, oh, don't worry, I got mine. I'm good now.
Yeah, it doesn't want to help you out.
So not a good phrase in our fire department.
Yeah, so I was like, damn, dude. Like I would never consider doing that to somebody. So I guess I just was naive, and now I still absolutely refer people, but I'm a lot more cautious about what I refer and to who.
I refer to people who will refer to me, and that's the biggest thing. Like if like right now, I'm literally today they're tearing out all the plumbing and sewage lines in one of my properties, and I got that from a friend of mine who does cleaning up in this area on one of the properties. So I was like, hey, I need a plumber. I went on Yellow Pages, I went on Google, and I called and emailed every single plumber that was on a list. And this is the only person that got back to me. And it's because I got the number from somebody else. Now I'll pass that number on to my buddy who also built a house up there when he needs a plumber, because he's a buddy of mine. But if I'm going to like take him off of my plate, I want to be able to put him back on later on and do work for me. But if he never works for me again, then I just shot myself in the foot. So that's the reason I ask for the contractor stuff, because I know since Tyler does long distance and Thomas is doing all over the place long distance, it's going to be one of the obstacles that Thomas is going to face is finding contractors he can rely on to take good pictures and pay on time and show up, answer phone calls, the whole gambit. So
well, and real quick on that too, I would suggest if people are doing virtual, there's things that you can do to somewhat protect yourself, right? Go to the state contractors license board, see if there's any type of complaints against them, use Yelp, see if they're bonded, ask for a current project they're on, ask if you can go talk to the current homeowner. There's a bunch of stuff you can do, but the big thing for me, I'm always dude, skip tracing for me, half the time it's for my contractors or my subs. It's like, where do they live? Are they bonded? Are they licensed? Do they have any complaints? Idaho is actually pretty good about listing all of that. So I always go and look. And if I don't find them, I call the contractor, say, hey, I don't see your license on the state board. And sometimes it's under a different trade or whatever it is, but at least it lets them know, hey, I'm looking you up before I spend my money with you. And then at least then, like anything, right? I'm sure Tommy knows, being a cop, if you call somebody out on something, you're going to see their reaction right away. You're going to know if there's something to worry about. Even like, oh, hey, you know what? My license lapsed. But I would suggest doing that because you're going to save yourself a ton of time. You don't want to pay somebody, then find out when you have a complaint, oh, there's 50 complaints online that I could have looked at in a 5-minute search.
So Tommy, you mentioned wraps. We haven't talked about wraps on here a whole lot. Do you want to go over what a wrap is real quick?
Yeah. So a wrap is basically when you're taking over a deal from the seller, and whether the seller has agreed to seller finance you the property or allow you to take over their existing mortgage subject to. And depending on the terms that you get from the seller, it could be attractive to turn around and sell the property on a wrap. Meaning that you're wrapping the existing terms that you're getting at a higher interest rate for a greater purchase price. And you're also accepting a down payment from the end buyer. So depending on the numbers and what your entry fee is and, what you can sell it for. And also I would add like the population, because I wouldn't mess around with anything like uber rural. It's nice because you can get in and get out like pretty quick without having to worry about repairs on the house for the most part. I mean, depending on the condition.
Can we walk through one? Like,
yeah, sure.
Like what does that look like numbers wise, and how do you find those?
So the first one I did was through a cold calling campaign, and I got in touch with the seller, and he was aware of seller finance. So we had multiple conversations, and I think I built up enough good rapport with him that he actually called me when his tenant of 10 years decided to move out. Okay. I think it's important to mention that because not every seller is going to be open to something like this, but this guy had about 7 properties. He already sold one for cash a few months prior, and his brother's an accountant. So he knew what seller finance was. He knew the benefits of not having to pay capital gains tax by doing it that way. And he was older, so he has kids and grandkids. So he knows full well he's going to get what he gave it to me for at 5% interest over time is significantly more money than just buying it outright. He was fair and reasonable, and it worked out. I mean, the ARV was 340. Let's see. He gave me a seller finance note, nothing down, at $180,000 purchase price at 5% interest rate over 30 years. So really, you just take a look at those numbers and then you go compare them. So I know the area. I know it's a top-notch school district. It's right outside the city. It's very sought after. So I knew that there was going to be some interest. The market rent was $2,500 a month for a 3-bedroom twin house in that area. So basically, when I look at George's PITI, that was the seller, his principal and interest and taxes and insurance comes out to about $1,500 a month. So I owe him $966 of that because that's the principal and interest. Now, if I'm going to wrap that, I just jump on the bank rate, check out a mortgage calculator. It takes 10 seconds. If I'm going to wrap it, I'm going to sell for over 30 years, right? The ARV is 340. So I originally marketed it at around like 300, and I ended up selling it for 250. So the terms were at 9.5% over 30 years. So my end buyer gave me a $25,000 down payment. So after closing costs, etc., because I did close through a title company and then eventually put it into a trust for the end buyer, But on the front end, my expenses were $12,000. So I had $10K to cover all expenses for closing, $2,000 for the clean out. And then the end buyer gave me $25,000 as a down payment. So I walked away with $13K. The turnaround time is about 45 days, I think, from initial close till the second close for the end buyer. And the difference between both payments, so that you have the $1,500 from the seller and the $2,500 from the end buyer. So that $1,000 is net to me. There's no deferred maintenance or anything. Okay.
Because they bought it. So it's not like a tenant. Like the gutter breaks, they fix it. Right.
It's theirs.
The furnace needs serviced, they fix it. Right.
Yep. So there is what, 70 grand worth of equity. He gave me a 25K down payment. So whenever he sells or refinances, I'll get, it's actually, there's some points added in there. It's about 47,000.
And presumably he's going to refinance you out because you're at 9.5%. Right.
Eventually it's going to be right. It's going to be optimal for him to get out.
Why did you have to reduce the purchase price from 300 to 250, even though it was a 350 ARV? Did it just need a lot of work?
It needed a ton of work. It needed about probably between 60 and 70K worth of work. And it was interesting because that was the first time I did one. So I used Travis's funneling setup here, like to find the end buyer. And
I was just going to say, did you take Travis Oglesby's class?
Yeah, it was super helpful. So after, I think I had about 5 people go see it. 2 of them were investors. 2 of them were women who were like, appalled by the condition of the house. And
I've had that happen to me too.
And the other guy,
you can't let people in there. It's not safe. Like, no, it just smells like dogs. Okay.
Yeah. There's still disgusting food in the freezer. I know. I'm sorry about that. But
did you take any? You can have it.
So my end buyer was like the perfect avatar. He was a super nice guy. He was going through a hard time with his a pending divorce, and his soon-to-be ex-wife lives about 3 blocks away. So he was a contractor. He's got over $100,000 in his bank account. He's ready to go. He can't qualify for a traditional mortgage, so this is exciting for him. He had flipped a house like literally a block away the year before. So he was comfortable with taking on the repairs and stuff like that. So from the time I found him till the time I closed was like 5 days, something like that.
So if he flips the house, say he flips this house and he decides to basically pay you off, do you have an early payoff agreement where he gets dinged?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all. Yeah. So over time, you got to, I mean, if he sells it now, I get my 47 plus whatever additional, interest might've been paid down, which isn't going to be much at all at this point, but the longer he holds it, the more that gap increases, right? For that 47K. Cause the original note's at 5%, his is at 9.5. Right. So that gap, right? That widens over time. So if he doesn't sell for 15 years or refi, that amount's going to increase.
Yeah. For all you EMS nerds, that's like a widening pulse pressure.
Here we fucking go.
Well, that's a good thing, though, right? To look at that, Tommy, to see like it's good for somebody if they're interested in the strategy. Go to use the numbers that you just gave them, and to see the principal pay down on a 9.5% interest versus a 5 is going to be a huge difference. And that's honestly how you get excited about these deals. I think you realize you got paid on the down payment, you get paid on the equity spread, and then you see the appreciation or the pay down, right? They're basically paying you the difference. You're able to pay that down, and the gap goes faster and faster. By the time they even get close to your 5%, it'd be a huge windfall for you.
Oh yeah.
And all these deals are there's always springboarding you onto the next deals and the next deal and the next deal after that.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, those kind of deals, like you're getting, I don't understand why you would ever wholesale that, because you're getting your wholesale fee right at closing. So, and you're reaping the benefits of that long-term cash flow, potentially long-term cash flow and the equity without having to do a whole ton of work at all, really.
And the beautiful part is it's like, and you said it's in a trust, so you're still retaining the benefits of owning the property, right? Yep. You're still getting the depreciation. You're still getting basically pluses, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
My understanding is if I choose to claim that property as an asset, then I can depreciate it for the length of that term.
Can you depreciate it in a trust?
I haven't done it yet. This will be the first year, but that's after talking to good old Jeff, like that's apparently how it works. So I'll keep you posted maybe if I jump on next year.
Yeah. So depreciation is basically the cost of the property, the value of the property, not the land, but the house itself or the structure, divided by 27.5. And the benefit of the trust is that the trust owns it. You're a financial beneficiary of it. But the drawback, the con, is that you can't claim that income on your taxes, from what I understand. Now, am I wrong in that assumption?
Again, my understanding is if you claim it as an asset. So maybe Mike knows more than I do, because I tend to I think in a case like this, like whenever taxes come is when I'll figure that out.
Yeah, April, right in April.
Yeah. So the one thing you mentioned was it needed a bunch of work. And I think that's one of the best things with this strategy, where it's like, you don't have to go. Obviously, you don't want to be selling like a crack house. I guess you could, but it doesn't need to be like brand new kitchen, all this stuff. And you sold it to basically the ideal candidate, somebody that's a contractor that could probably do a lot of his own work. He's basically going to make the property worth more. So if he defaults, he's going to lose his down payment of, what'd you say, 25?
Yep.
He's going to theoretically probably improve the property while he's there, because he's probably painting it and fixing this and doing this. And so I don't know. I haven't done them long enough to see too much of the downside, but I can tell you, like, to me, it holds the buyer's feet to the fire a little bit more than just your standard renter, because, hey, it's not a security deposit like that you get back if you have good behavior. Basically, it is, if you basically break your end of the contract, you lose that. So not too many people are going to want to walk away from $25,000. So
agreed. Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things. I've been obviously heavily into it now for about a year, and we haven't had anything go full cycle yet, but it is like rental properties, but with a lot more upside, I think, for you as the owner, so to speak.
Tommy, one of the things that you mentioned was he didn't want to sell and have to pay the gains taxes. And I know we've talked about this a lot, and we talked about this in Delaware, because I've been looking in Delaware. I'm 5 minutes away from it right now. Is that, like, some places, if it's your primary residence and you're single and you sell it, you can write off $250,000. You're not going to get taxed on. If you're in a relationship and you're married, then it's $500,000 last time I looked. But there's other things you need to look at, like, for him, like estate tax and inheritance tax. Like, some states have an exorbitant amount of inheritance tax and estate tax when you sell the property, whereas places like Delaware, we both looked at, doesn't have any. So, like, there's financial benefits in where you're playing it too. Like, it could be state dependent. I'm just saying Delaware because me and you have both looked in that state before. So, like, when I pass away and I have kids, then you're not going to have to pay inheritance taxes. Whereas if I'm in Idaho, then I'm going to pay an estate tax. I don't even know what it is. I'm looking at Kiplinger right now to try to find some of them out. But like, does you take that into account at all for these? Any kind of taxes?
For the seller, you mean?
For you, like, in general, like when you start looking at investing, are you looking at like state tax, property tax, income tax, any of the taxes above?
No, I'm not going to lie. I haven't got there yet.
I say that. Yeah, there are certain areas where your property taxes are astronomical. Like, I know Baltimore City is the highest in Maryland, and Prince George's County, where I live at, is the second highest. And I'm like, even if I paid this house off, I'm still paying $400 to $500 a month in taxes alone. So is it worth it for me to invest there versus going somewhere where they have extremely low property taxes like Delaware, where I'm paying literally half of what I would be paying in PG County or Baltimore? That's the only reason I bring it up, is because, like, a lot of people don't look at the whole picture and say, okay, where's all my money going? Well, HOA is $700 a month. Property taxes are $600-700 a month. The sales tax on everything I'm buying around it at Home Depot and Lowe's is 6%, and you can actually minimize your overhead expenses, not just in real estate investing, but in your own personal life by lowering your tax bracket and your taxable exposure by not having to pay all these and living in the right places. Like some places tax your pension at 7-8%, and other places don't tax your pension at all. I think Pennsylvania, which is right up the road from Mike, they don't tax your pension whatsoever. But if you come to Maryland, I think it's like 6.6%. California, what is it in Cali?
What they tax our pension at?
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't think my pension is going to be taxed. Fortunately and unfortunately, but I honestly don't know because I wasn't planning on retiring anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot. It's in California.
That's why. That's the reason I asked him.
Yeah, Maryland does not a whole lot of favors for you, so there's really no reason for me to stay here, and I definitely don't plan on being here in 5 years. So I don't know where that will be, but it will definitely be looking at the cost savings when it comes to taxes for certain.
And politically, like Hogan was saying, how we're not going to tax firefighters, we're not going to tax police once you retire. And everybody was like, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then it just never came to fruition. It just kind of died off. All it was a political statement. There's no actual movement on that so far.
Well, I've learned one thing is I will absolutely – people always say, isn't real estate risky? Isn't real estate risky? You know what's a lot riskier? Trusting politicians.
Yeah. One income.
You know, yeah, one income. And putting your sole source of income in the hands of politicians because – I mean, let's face it. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. They're all liars. So, I mean, they're just anyways. So, Tommy, how did you talked about cold calling. How did you go about that? You just start picking up the phone and just start dialing numbers or how did you do that? You find a list? How did you find a list or what's that look like?
Well, first of all, I didn't just jump right into it because I had no idea how to start it. So I started by asking questions. And I think it still holds true today for everything else I do, really. I just go find somebody that's done it before. I talked to Tyler. I talked to all three of you guys actually about it at some point, and a few other guys that I met in Sub 2 about how to get started and what's the smartest way to do it. But for me, it was like, so it took me a while to realize that there were really different aspects of the business. And initially, like it can be overwhelming because there's so much going on. You're like, where do I start? What do I do? So I talked to Tyler. He said, if you commit to it, just commit to it for like 3 months and see how it goes. So I started with one VA and then I was doing all the lead management. And then after about 2 months, it already got overwhelming because I had like X amount of leads in here. And I'd be on the phone all day, either trying to get a hold of people or whatever, trying to find that needle in the haystack. And it got built out to the point where I had a business partner and we had 2 lead managers who were awesome and 2 VAs, and they were all cold calling. And then we hit some bumps in the road where, like, you know, I guess with anything else, like the cold calling, like a lot of the numbers started getting blocked very quickly. And so we had a ton of leads coming in, but just like anything else, like you're looking for that small percentage of people that you can actually do a deal with and it'll work. The other thing I want to mention is too, especially if you're newer, like one thing that people won't tell you is how hard this is. It requires a lot of work. You're going to get slapped in the face a bunch of times.
A whole lot.
And, you know, like I remember I got my first property under contract. I was like, oh my God, I'm a fucking millionaire. And the truth of the matter is that more than half of those deals you have under contract are going to fall apart in one way or another. And the seller's either going to ghost you or something's going to happen and something's going to pop up and whatever. You could find a lien on the property and then the deal is dead. And there's so many things that can go wrong. And I think just experiencing those challenges, like over time, like I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with seeing those things pop up initially. And not be like, yeah, whatever, like taking it personally or anything like that. Like it just happens. You just got to move on to the next one.
The hard part. That's the hard part too, right? Because like you said, nobody sells that because that's not the sexy part of investing. But that's once you get over that hurdle, and I know you have, it's like, okay, once I understand what the actual game is and I'm okay with that, then the sky is the limit. You just have to be willing to get punched in the face, and it's going to continue to happen. Like right now, for example, my lead sources have been almost 100% via PPC or SEO for the last year and a half. But in the last 6 months, my lead cost has exponentially increased. And there's still that gap where a lot of people who are looking online are, for whatever reason, still thinking we're back in 2020 or 2021. So I'm spending a ton of money without really realizing any deals at this point. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, how do I adapt? A lot of these wholesale numbers don't work. I can do one of two things. I can quit, which I know I'm not going to ever do, or I can figure out how do I turn these leads into deals that do work. And like you said, for that wrap, I think a lot of these deals would work on a wrap, because you're going to be able to play that middle game. And even if it's a smaller number, interest rates right now are so high. If I can secure low interest debt, even though there's not a lot of equity, I may be able to make a play on some of these properties, whereas I didn't before. And that's why, like I even told you, 3 to 6 months of any type of marketing, you have to commit, because 1 month or 2 weeks is way too small of a sample size to understand if something works. 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you can understand, okay, how much am I spending? How much am I receiving? Is this worthwhile? And is there anything else that generates a larger return? Are you still just doing cold calling?
No, that's actually kaput completely.
So what's your lead source?
To be honest with you, right now, like I've totally fallen into, and I love this niche for right now. For example, I'm buying a property off a wholesaler, the Georgia one. It's a $5,000 wholesale fee. Cash to seller is $2,000. He's got a 211K balance on a 300K ARV property at 2.75%. So I'm getting in for next to nothing. If I'm getting my down payment from my end buyer, I'm not only going to be made whole, most likely I'm probably going to walk away from closing with a couple grand. And to boot, I don't know what the interest rates are today, but even if I wrap that thing, because it's at 2.75, I wrap it at 6%, which I believe is probably still under the national standard right now, it's going to be a deal for the end buyer. Like, I'll take those all day. So really, I just been building relationships with other investors and other guys who really are like excited about the concept of the wrap and how to use a trust, and learning that strategy. So I've got a few deals going on right now where I'm working with other investors, and they're coming to me and saying, hey, you want to do this deal together? I say, sure. So we're trying to just figure that out together. So I haven't really had to look for a lead, at least over the past couple of weeks. I've had a few come to me. So I kind of like that strategy right now.
So let me ask you this. You just made me think, and maybe you're doing this. Do you have anybody that works for you?
Right now, I'm just flying solo, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, even just you, right? So you made me think of something. Okay, a wholesaler came to you, I'm assuming because they couldn't get the price that they wanted on a cash deal.
I think that is, yes. I have a guy in Philly that I talk with all the time. He's always calling me about this and that, and the subject to concept and stuff like that. The other two wholesalers are actually have a very basic level understanding of creative finance, but not enough to structure the deal and make it work on the back end. And they know that I've done them. So it's a learning experience for them and for me too, really. And, just working together, that's pretty much it. But I will say this too, like, it is possible. Like, I had, as a free lead resource, like, dude, if you look on Zillow and try to figure out who's flipping properties and their properties are sitting for an extended period of time, I got another investor who it fell through, but he did a cash out refi on his property at 6.5%. So when I ran the numbers, it's still wrappable, right? So he doesn't know how to do the back end stuff. So he was all about it initially, about just giving him a small down payment, wrapping those new terms, and then finding the end buyer. So buying that property off of him. But that, because when you look at it, right, numbers wise, like I think he got a 70% cash out refi LTV. So there's still 30% equity in that property. So you could find leads.
that was my thought, was even if you're doing it on your own and you don't need to pay for deals, because what you just made me think was you could literally sign up for every wholesaler's list. Like, let's say whatever county you're in, it would be Orange County, right? And then I would just flag through my email account any post that says price reduction or price improvement or whatever it is. As soon as I see that, I could hop on the phone with that wholesaler or whoever it is, and you could have a standard pitch. Hey, my name's Tommy. This is what I specialize in. If you don't get the cash price that you want, do you think that we could partner up, JV? We could figure out how to wrap this to the end buyer. You get paid, I get paid, and we both get paid on a monthly basis. And the only thing you're out at that point is time. And I have a feeling right now, I mean, some markets are hot, some are cold, but you could probably, like you said, expand your reach just by flagging every email that you get from wholesalers that says price improvement or price reduction.
Absolutely.
Just got to start a new email address, Tommy.
But they're out there. I think honestly, the amount of maybe I've noticed anyway, at least through the pages that I frequent all the time, there are a lot more subject to creative finance wholesalers out there that are taking these deals down, and I can take a look at it at this point now and figure it out within 10 seconds whether it's going to work or not, and also what the entry fee is. And a lot of people can't. So if you can figure that part of the strategy out, for sure, yeah, it doesn't take all that long, in my opinion.
Once you're trained on it, though, you're like, you know it for life. That's one of the things when you took that class, like you invested in yourself and took the class with Travis, and you learned about it, and then you kind of dove in. And now that you have that knowledge, you can use that for the rest of your life if you want to.
Oh my God!
If you do nothing else, that you have this.
It's incredible. I could make a living off of just doing that. I don't want to, like, if I like the one I got a subject to in South Philly. I held on to that because I like the location, and it was like turnkey. So the buy-in was so low, I just took over the existing. I seller financed her a little bit of her equity, so that was like a hybrid. So she had a mortgage and some equity. I just paid her over time with her equity, but the numbers still work for a long-term rental. So that's one of my other factors too. But I turned it into a short-term rental. My wife is super excited because she got a chance to get in there and design the place, and she's actually managing it now. But I'll hold on to it if it makes sense. And I think really, I'd love to hold every property. I really don't want to do wraps all the time, but if it works, it works. Just whatever the best exit strategy is for any given property, and everyone's different.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
You're able to adapt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the same thing you were saying. You have to be able to adapt, and you got to know how to look at it.
Yeah.
You're a Swiss Army knife now. You're not like, you can go, well, and that's the thing. That's you increase your staying power that way, and you increase your profits because you're not a one-trick pony. You understand, you're a deal maker. And that's, I think, once you get to that point where you understand all of that, it's just, what do I want to do with this property? How can I make the most sense out of it for me, right?
I'm only laughing because of this Tampa one. It's so hairy, dude. It's so hairy.
Let's go over it. What's the obstacles you're facing?
Every single one you could possibly imagine. In fact, the nice gentleman who's helping me, the trustee, is actually, he's got a shit ton of experience, and he even told me today that it's hands down the most complicated transaction he's ever done. There's two people on title, so they're not related. The gentleman, Clyde, so his brother who passed away was married to the other person on title, Anita. So they're both on title. They hate each other. They don't want to talk to each other. I had him under agreement for a seller finance deal, right? Purchase price of $80,000. I was going to give her $10K, and it was amortized over 10 years, right? So the all-in monthly P&I payment was around $800 a month. The market rent is $2,100. So there's a ton of room already. She ghosted on the day of closing. Nobody's heard of her since. I spent 2 months trying to track her down, and she fell off the face of the earth, basically. So no phone number. Either she blocked or she changed phone numbers. Whatever the case may be, she's impossible to find. I sent mail to a couple different addresses. I reached out to relatives left and right. Finally, I discussed it with Jeff, and Clyde is dying to get rid of it. He's got proof of payment. He paid off the entire loan a number of years back, and we have record of that. So this poor guy is stuck because Anita's a pain in the ass, and now he can't sell it. He's older. He just wants to get rid of it. He's tired of paying the HOA. So long story short, I'm taking over his interest in the property. I'm giving him nothing down. I'm giving him no payment whatsoever until Anita comes back in the picture and quit claims her interest in the property back to him. So I'm literally getting a free house. I'm catching the taxes up for $400, and the HOA I think is about the same. So the agreement to him is I give him $500 a month for the first 3 years, and then up to $800 to take over the rest because she was going to get a portion of those payments initially. So because she's having a picture, go ahead.
Real quick. So who told you, or who thought of that structure right there? That was
Jeff. Jeff Hatcher.
And who's Jeff?
Jeff is an attorney. He's Travis's guy. He's awesome. It
was the phone call I just had to take because I have a closing in an hour, and I know this is going to come as a shocker. Some stuff's happening. So yeah, I was like, oh God, that's not good. He called me twice in a row. So
well, and that's why I ask. That's a leading question, right? It's because people they get stuck and they don't know what to do with the deal, and then they're like, oh, I can't do this. And I've had luck with that too, is pay an attorney either for their time or, like a set fee. Like I'll pay an hourly rate sometimes, right? Because I'm stuck. And hey, they probably done a ton of deals. He obviously had done something similar to this before, and he was able to give you that info and, hey, this is how we can structure it. And then boom, you continue along in the deal. Like for me, it's cost me $500 an hour sometimes, but that $500 an hour turns into a closed deal. Like I bought a property after the seller didn't even own it anymore. They lost it through taxes through Idaho. The attorney said, hey, why don't you just pay the taxes? We'll close concurrently on the same day that you pay the taxes. The property will be back in their name that morning. You buy it from them that afternoon, and then everything's cool. I turned zero profit until I think the profit was only like 40 grand, which is still good money, but I only paid $40,000 for the property originally. So for like you took something that most people might just say, oh, hey, you know what? This is it. I'm tapping out. I'm done. And that's why I wanted to interrupt you. So sorry, go ahead. But there's a lot of value in what you just did, and you paid for that guy's experience. You paid for Jeff's experience.
Yeah, I feel personally invested in that deal at this point because I spent so many hours on it. I'm just not letting it go. And when I had to talk to the seller again, because when I pulled up the county records and there was a lien that I missed on there. We already know about it actually, but when I talked to the seller, I let them know. It's like, oh, I cannot step into this property knowing we originally agreed to 3 months of deferred payments. And I said, there's so many question marks right now that I can't step into this unless I know for sure that I'm not out of pocket any more than what it's going to take for me to close on it, which is just catching up the taxes and the HOA at this point. So they're cool with it because they're tired of paying the HOA. Nobody else can figure it out because I know they're talking to other investors and nobody wants to touch it at all. I'm like, I'll take it.
So what's your end goal with it? Like, what's your plan after you close?
So now I'm stepping into it and I'm literally turning into a rental. I got to clean it out and spruce it up a bit. I have about a $10,000 to $15,000 budget on it, but my end game is based upon the fact that if the original other seller comes back into the picture, we still have her terms in place. Okay. I'm going to renegotiate with her because she's responsible for half of the expenses incurred. So if I have to go in there and fix and clean it up, I'm going to keep all my receipts and I'm going to present it to her at the time and renegotiate with her. But as long as I can get in there, my entry fee stays low enough, I can still turn around and sell it on a wrap.
So
I'll hold it as a rental and for as long as need be. And I'm cool with that because of I literally don't have to pay anything. I have to pay. The seller does not get paid until the other seller comes back in and quit claims her interest of the property back to him.
So if you put $15,000 into it, round numbers, then she comes back in the picture magically and was like, "Oh, I want my cut." Like, okay, you can have your cut, but first you owe me $7,500 for the repairs made because you're responsible for it, and then you can renegotiate based upon those numbers.
Yep, exactly.
Hairy. Very hairy.
Super hairy, and a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable with it, but I told you I'm a garbage head. I'll take it. And to be honest with you, it's a learning experience. Like I said, I had to call around and find out. Now I got to get the thing covered in insurance, and I talked to USAA. They're like, no, we don't do anything in Florida. So I had to call some local companies down there, and I'm waiting to hear back. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you have to get like state-backed insurance down there.
Yeah,
because
I don't know.
a lot of insurance companies won't do anything down there, let alone with a mobile. So,
but like I've talked to guys like and they're good friends of mine that have always wanted to get into real estate, and they talk about it all the time, and they learn about it and they chat about it, right? But they never do anything with it. And then, I think there's like a line. Maybe I'm like way less risk at first than Aaron is, and that's one of the reasons why I call him all the time. It's because I get carried away and I need to check in with somebody that has
reel it back in.
Right. You listen to all the bad things that could happen, but at the same time, I'm still interested in doing it. It's a learning experience.
Well,
if I can get the deal
apparently
done well.
serving you well by taking action. Like if you're just only going to walk into these super easy deals where there's just no problems with the house or the contract or the liens, there's not a lot of value. So like you usually get rewarded directly proportional to the problem you solved. So like what Tyler just talked about with that $40,000 profit, that was a issue that most people aren't going to be able to figure out. And whenever you run into an issue, like I definitely don't have the answer, but like I said the other day, within 15 minutes and probably 3 or 4 phone calls, I bet I can be on the right path to getting it figured out. Like you mentioned an attorney, like that's what he specializes in trusts and basically all of these things. Like I'm not an expert, I'm not an attorney, but I'm paying for his expertise. And if it costs me $1,900 for a couple hours of his time, but it gets you a deal where you got no money in it and it's going to pay you like that, like, okay. Nobody said it's going to be easy. And that's what my coaching student that I'm going to have him on here. He just closed his first deal. He's like, I wish you would have basically reiterated at the beginning how hard some of this would be. Right. Because it's not hard, but it's not easy either. Like, and I think a lot of people, whenever they don't taste success within the first 60 days, all of a sudden the honeymoon effect is worn off and they don't want to go through all the basically work, because you'll go months and months without ever collecting anything. But like once you get over that hump, next thing you know, you got this deal going and this deal going. And it's funny that we've been working together for 4 months. It took him 4 months to basically get the first deal to the table. The day he got that deal to the table, he put another one under contract. It was like, see, now you start to get that momentum, but you didn't have anything. It like takes a while to prime the pump. But once you got water, you got water. Right.
He's a copy. He's not going to understand that terminology.
Yeah. So, but it's like one of the things I see it time and time again on here or in the meetup, and just people I talk to, like they're so excited. They want this. They want to leave their job because bottles of piss are hitting them in the face. Right. Like whatever the case is. And they want all this, but they don't realize that it actually takes getting uncomfortable and taking action and basically, I don't know, like almost like a leap of faith, but it's possible. And you're obviously proof of it.
So Thomas, one of the things we talked about before was bandwidth and capacity, which is what Mike is going after right now, is like you were trying to take on the entire animal kingdom at one point versus focusing on like a couple specific animals. Like, are you more focused on what you're doing now, or are you still like kind of shotgun blasting and whatever comes back?
No, I'm way more focused. I think the amount of time that I was devoting to like managing a team or trying to manage a team was overwhelming. And to be honest with you, I have no idea still to this day how many deals might have fallen through the cracks or whatever. I'm not opposed to, I mean, some people are into that and that's cool and can do it. Great. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking too soon. I don't know if I'll ever go back to that, to be honest with you. I know what I like to do, and I get excited about, and I put a lot of energy into that now, which is honestly, I spend half my day talking to other investors or newer guys getting into it. And that's what excites me. And apparently it's working because I have some deals coming my way. So if I can organically make that work, then I'm good. I'm happy with that. I think initially I wanted to start a multi-million-dollar company, and I don't know if I want to do that anymore. I kind of like waking up and spend time with my kids and my wife. And we were just talking about the other day, like I can work from anywhere, dude. Like I can pick up and we can move somewhere. She wants to move back to Nevada near her family. Like, cool, let's do it. Like, I'll throw my main house here on Airbnb and let's get it cooking. I'll go buy a creative deal out there. It's exciting. And the freedom that's involved with that already, just from having my needs met, I'd like to get my wife there too, is ginormous. It really is.
So are you is your stress levels lower now than they were when you were active police?
Oh my God. I think about it sometimes. It's like I wake up and I've normally if I hear my alarm, I'm jumping out of bed because I know if I'm not at roll call as a sergeant, like I look like a tool. So that was built into me for years and years and years. And now my alarm goes off and I'm like, fuck you. And I'm like, or whatever. Like, it's just nice. Like I can
get 5 more minutes and not have to stress out about it.
I don't have to be anywhere at any given time unless I want to be, like that at the end of the day. Like, so that to me is exciting. Like my kids, we're Catholic, so they got mass on certain days of the week. I can go with them during the day and they get excited to see me. Like, whatever, my daughter's got a dance coming up next month, or my son, just anything that's involved with family. Now I can do it. Like, I don't have to answer to anybody, and that alone is just priceless in my opinion.
And no piss bottles.
Yeah, no piss bottles, dude. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore.
Didn't have to worry about the riots.
Every time something happens now, it gives me chills, and it's sad and it's frightening, and I know that feeling of going to work and being like, dude, like, is something bad going to happen and my family's going to get a knock on the door or something like that? There was a temple officer that got assassinated the other day, and he was new. I think he had like a year on or something like that. And they're posting pictures all over social media of him and his kids and family. It's heartbreaking. That is the worst example of anything that could happen, but it's possible. So now I don't have to do that. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Like I could get struck by lightning tomorrow, who knows, but at least I can wake up and be happy about what I do and know that, I don't have to worry about my kids getting a knock. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I think the conversation we had the day after the Super Bowl was I pulled up on the scanner. I was listening to the riots in Philly. Win, lose, or draw, Philly's going to riot. It's just it's Philly. And I was like, aren't you glad that you don't have to be at work right now dealing with all this headache right now? And you're like, yeah. So hats off to you. So I think you're proof of the pudding that in a year you can make leaps and bounds changes if you set your mind and energy towards it. You're going to hit some speed bumps. You're going to hit some potholes, but at the same time, like, you're proof that it can be done.
I love it. I appreciate all your guys' time too, because that's really like what built it, I think. So if anybody else is newer to real estate and needs help with anything, I'll be glad to help. And I know all these guys do for sure.
Would you give advice to anybody who's still trying to learn?
I think you need to set your expectations accordingly. I mean, if you're looking to leave the job, just know that you're taking on another one initially. Just the amount of time and effort you're going to have to put into learning. I mean, you have everything from marketing to sales to, deal structuring and then transaction coordination, everything that they're all individual jobs in and of itself. So it's a lot to learn, but I think if you have like a passion for it, that I would just try to find. My philosophy is very simple. Like I just go and try and find the people who are doing what I want to do, and I ask them how they did.
It's a novel concept, right?
That's so simple. That's all I do.
That's like all those things you just talked about, the transaction coordination, the marketing, the calling, whatever it is. Like all of those things are just pillars that hold the table up. And if you're not able to do one, or it's not your strong suit, there are services that do it for you. There's education out there that you can learn about getting better at it. If you want to do it, like there's all these tools and opportunities to do all of those things. So, well, cool, man.
All right. Well, look, this has been an hour. Tommy, I already know what your past looks like and what your motivation is. So moving forward into the next, we'll say year, 6 months, what's your goals? What are you trying to take down?
Right now, I'd say my 6 to 12 month goal is really to get my wife's income replaced completely. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm going to shoot for it. She makes a good amount of money, so I'm trying to work backwards here. However many deals I need to get for X amount of dollars every month to replace that cash flow. I don't know if I'll be in the wraps forever, but right now, 100%. To me, they're the quickest moving creatures, dude. Like, you can move and do a deal half the time without even using a title company. So, I mean, the speed of the transaction and the amount of net income that you're gaining every month is amazing in my eyes. So, to me, along with the fact that sub twos are really getting much bigger right now, I think it's a no-brainer. So I'm looking to really just replace that cash flow, and I cherry pick properties along the way. If anything makes sense, I'll hold on to it. You know what I mean?
Nice. At least you have goals set in place, and they're attainable. I think they're realistic expectations that you can actually get. So hats off to you for coming as far as you had the last year, and hopefully we'll see the exponential growth over the next couple of years.
Thanks, man.
Tyler,
I'm
Mike,
sure
anything
we will.
left? Yeah, well, I'm sure we will.
I
Thomas
was
is
just
going to
gonna
be posting more in our group now. He already said he would, and he's going to be doing Zooms on Sundays.
Yeah, Sundays at 1 p.m. for now. Anybody that's interested, just shoot me a message, and I'll send you the registration link. It's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and I think I'll always stick with that philosophy, because that's one of the reasons why I love this group so much in particular, is because I have yet to be tried to sold a damn thing. And everybody I talk to just about is honestly just trying to help. So that there's a lot to be said about that for sure.
All right, guys. Been an hour and 1 minute. Thomas, thank you very much. You guys can reach out to him. Thomas O'Brien. He's in the Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Tyler hit him up for mortgages. Mike hit him up for his expertise in literally everything, and how to figure out and fix deals and storage units and everything. So thanks, guys. It's been an hour.
All right, guys, take care, and talk to the retired police officer some other day.
Yeah, watch out for the piss bottles.
Yeah. We'll mail you some if it make you feel better.
I'm sure you will.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.